Next, there's a good chance you're going to want to add some frequently used colors to your library as well. So if we find that base material, you could change the diffuse color here and save lots of different base materials with different colors, but then mixing those with your various specular amount, Fresnel, and roughness values is going to be a little bit tricky. A cleaner way to do that would be instead to head up to Add Layer, Processing, Constant. A constant is just a way of replacing a given parameter in the material below it. In this case, we're working with diffuse color, and so if we change the diffuse color here, then it's going to let us change the diffuse color of our object really quickly and easily using a separate layer that we can save as its own preset. So for example, I tend to like to use 0.01 really often for RG and B, but dragging to get there is kind of a pain. So it's nice to save this color, this really dark gray color, so I can access it really quickly. Then I can just right-click that layer, Save Preset, and then in my Assets directory, I have a Materials Colors folder, and in there I could save this as my 00 dark gray. Now the only reason I save that as 00 is just so that it sorts in a certain way in my list. I like for my values to be at the top and then colors below that. If I look in that folder, find my materials colors, I have that dark gray right there. I can render an icon for that really quickly. And right-click and replace icon with last render. And now I have a dark gray that I can add to any material whenever I want to. Now you may also want to add gamma corrected colors, right? So for example, here I have the CAD Junkie logo. I'd like to grab this blue color, and I want to make sure that I'm getting a gamma corrected version of it, because we've talked about this. If I use this color as it is, it's going to come in and render too bright. So what I need to do is adjust it in Photoshop. Now a quick way to do that is to create a blank document that you can use over and over for this purpose. And then head down here to your adjustment layers and add an exposure adjustment layer. Then we can set our gamma correction to 0.4545 to de-gamma the colors in here. And then I can use my eyedropper to grab a color, and it'll give me the gamma corrected version of that color. So I can select the hex value for that, hop back over to Modo, jump in here, let's paste that hex value right in, hit enter, and we end up with the exact CAD Junkie blue. I can right-click, I can save that preset. We'll save it in that same folder. I'm going to call this 01 CJ Blue and save that out. Once again, render, close this up, replace icon with last render, and we have CJ Blue to work with. Now let's say there's some other color that you want to add really fast. If we jump back over to Photoshop, because we use this exposure layer, we don't need to think about that again. We've already done it. So let's drag in the Solid Smack logo, for example, right up here and hit OK. And I can hide that CAD Junkie logo. And we can grab colors straight off of this. Now if I hide the exposure layer, it comes back to the normal colors. But that exposure layer is already de-gammaing my colors. So I could grab this red color, for example. We'll grab its hex code, jump back over to Modo, repeat the same old thing. We'll paste that in, hit enter. We can right-click, save this preset. I'll save this as 01 SS Red, render, close that up, and replace icon with last render. Now we have colors to work with. So if I jump over to my base materials, for example, let's just do a run through here. Let's say I want to do a clear coat paint, something like this. I'll drag that out over my sphere material. Just make sure it's above everything else. Delete that other stuff that was in there, and we're left with just that basic clear-coated material, right? Then I could go to, for example, my Materials Textures folder. Let's drop in a nice coarse texture on top of that, right up there. And that's going to give us that texture right on top. Things are going to render a little more slowly now because of that texture, but it's there. And then I could go to, say, my Materials Colors, grab that Solid Smack Red, drop it right on top of everything else, and everything turns red. So you can imagine there is a ton that we can do here, and this gives us lots and lots of flexibility to create really useful real-world material presets that we can mix and match as needed. Have fun with that, and let's move on to something else.